All right, let's jump right into this explainer, and honestly, let's demystify the whole TOGAF documentation set. If your organization is just beginning its journey with enterprise architecture, it is so incredibly easy to feel totally overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information out there. Seriously, so many enterprise initiatives just stall out completely because teams get paralyzed. They literally don't know where to start. But today, we're going to reframe that entirely. We are not going to treat the TOGAF standard like some rigid, massive rulebook. Instead, think of it as a highly adaptable, modular toolbox for your enterprise architecture journey. By the time we wrap up here, you're going to know exactly how to pick up the right tools to build your architecture capability from the ground up, step by step.
We've got a super clear roadmap for you today. We're going to start with a quick welcome to the framework, break down the 6 core documents, look at tailoring with series guides, show you how to accelerate your work using the library, and finally, talk about actually adopting and merging these tools right into your existing workflows. Let's get to it. So, part 1, welcome to TOGAF. Let's just start by establishing exactly what we're looking at when we talk about this foundational industry standard and, why it actually matters so much for your business capabilities. So, the absolutely crucial point to understand here is that this framework is built entirely on openness and consensus. The Open Group is constantly working with customers, tech suppliers, and all sorts of consortia to forge this standard together. But you might be wondering, why does all that consensus actually matter for you? Well, it's simple, really. It acts as a universal language for architects everywhere. By adopting a framework built on industry consensus, you're actively preventing vendor lock-in. You're ensuring true interoperability no matter the context. Basically, you are laying down a foundation that is proven, tested, and universally understood across the entire global tech industry. It's a real game changer. Now, taking a look at the complete documentation portfolio, I like to think of this like a really expansive, well-organized restaurant menu. On the left side there, we've got the TOGAF standard itself, which splits neatly into fundamental content and series guides. And then, kind of wrapping around it on the right, you have the TOGAF library, which is absolutely packed with white papers, pocket guides, and reference architectures. Now listen, the absolute major takeaway here, especially for teams who are completely new to enterprise architecture, is this. You do not have to consume the whole menu at once. Please, don't try to. You simply browse, and you select the specific elements that fit your organization's current appetite and immediate needs. It really is that flexible. All right, moving into part 2, the 6 core documents. Let's dive into the very heart of the standard and break down what's honestly going to serve as your starting point. Notice how the fundamental content here is structured as a specific list of 6 totally freestanding, independent documents. The whole intention behind dividing the standard up this way, actively moving away from what used to be just a massive monolithic book, is pure flexibility. It empowers your organization to consider different areas of enterprise specialization in immense detail. And, maybe even more importantly, it lets you address them completely in isolation based on whatever is burning brightest on your roadmap right now. Let's go ahead and unpack the first 3 of these core documents. First up, we have the introduction and core concepts. This just sets the stage by defining that universal terminology we were talking about earlier. Second, and this is probably the most famous one, is the architecture development method, or the ADM. If you've been around TOGAF at all, you've probably heard folks talk about the famous crop circle diagram, right? Well, this document is literally the engine of the framework. It describes this fantastic, iterative, step-by-step cycle that takes you all the way from a super high-level business vision right down to a detailed technology implementation. And third, we have ADM techniques. This one gives you the concrete tools you actually need when you're executing those steps. Things like conducting a gap analysis, managing some really complex risks, or defining business scenarios. Honestly, if your team is starting totally fresh, mastering that ADM process and its supporting techniques, that is absolutely your first major milestone. Okay, so the remaining 3 independent documents in the core really help you operationalize that step-by-step method we just talked about. Applying the ADM gives you guidelines for adapting the core cycle to specific architectural styles, which basically ensures it fits your unique environment perfectly. Then we've got architecture content. Now this one is massive. It gives you a structured meta model. Basically, think of it as a way of ensuring everyone in your enterprise is speaking the exact same structural language when they're designing artifacts and reusable building blocks. No more crosswires. Finally, there's enterprise architecture capability and governance. Look, the hard truth of enterprise architecture is that even the most brilliantly designed system is going to fail if it doesn't have a proper organizational mandate. This document actually helps you build that mandate. It details the roles, the committees, and the governance frameworks you need to actually run an effective architecture function day in and day out. Moving on to part 3, tailoring with series guides. Now that we've covered the foundational core, let's explore how the framework actually adapts to specialized real-world needs. But here is the million-dollar question, right? How does a foundational standard, one that's as historically robust as those 6 documents we just looked at, actually keep up with rapidly shifting technology trends without just becoming completely obsolete? I mean, business models change practically overnight, and standing still simply isn't an option for anyone. Well, that brings us right to your next vital toolkit. And this is exactly where the TOGF series guides come into play. These guides are designed specifically for practitioners who need much more specific, timely detail than the fundamental core content can provide. For instance, let's say your organization is heavily pivoting to sprints and scrums. Well, the Agile Architecture Guide brilliantly bridges the gap between that long-term enterprise planning and your short-term agile delivery. There are also guides for improving your digital enterprise offerings, delivering zero-trust security architecture, or utilizing microservices. And here's the best part. Because these guides are kept separate from those core foundational documents, they can be updated continuously. There's a constant delivery pipeline maintaining them, ensuring they literally always reflect the bleeding-edge market trends your business is facing right now.
All right, Section 4, Accelerating with the Library. Let's take a look at how all this translates into practical, day-to-day acceleration for your architecture teams. Think of the TOGAF library as your organization's absolute ultimate reference toolkit. It is specifically designed to dramatically speed up your actual daily work. As you can see, it follows a continuum. It starts way up at that high-level fundamental content and then zooms all the way into highly specific, practical applications for distinct industry verticals. And the coolest part is that it's an ever-growing repository, constantly maintained by industry experts under the governance of the Open Group Architecture Forum. Just to make this crystal clear, while the TOGAF standard gives you the overarching approach and that big consensus-driven framework, the TOGAF library hands you the practical, ground-level tools. Honestly, here is a massive pro tip for teams who are just starting out. Never, ever start an architecture artifact with a blank page. Seriously, don't do it. Instead, go straight to the reference library. You can pull ready-to-use templates and proven reference patterns right off the shelf. Leveraging the library this way instantly accelerates your creation process, it drastically reduces errors, and it completely prevents your team from reinventing the wheel on every single new project. It's a total lifesaver. Okay, we've made it to our final section, Adopting and Merging TOGAF. Let's talk about how you actually go about successfully bringing these capabilities into your own organization. Because the standard is so carefully divided into those freestanding documents we talked about, adoption is incredibly flexible. If you're a new organization just beginning your TOGAF journey, the framework actually encourages incremental adoption. So, you might choose to adopt just the ADM process initially to get your projects moving, and then deliberately table the materials relating to deep architecture capability for later. Makes sense, right? But what if you're a mature team that's already deployed other frameworks? Well, the steps to merge are actually really straightforward. First, you just map your current frameworks, like maybe you use ITIL for service management or SAFe for agile delivery. Second, identify the specific gaps in your strategic planning. And finally, just select only the specific TOGAF documents that fill those exact gaps, like maybe the architecture content meta model, and plug them directly into your existing ecosystem. You do not have to do a massive rip and replace, you just smoothly integrate.
So, there you have it. We've completely unpacked the guidebook today, from the foundational core documents that give you that universal language, all the way to the rapid delivery library that practically hands you the templates you need. It is an open, incredibly powerful ecosystem that's been designed from the ground up to be tailored to your exact reality. So as you step back into your organization, I want to leave you with a question. Are you going to continue struggling with an overwhelming blank canvas? Or are you ready to pick up the ultimate modular toolkit and actually architect your enterprise's future?